This two-dimensional array will going to hold 2 rows. So it will going to hold, or it will going to have 2 rows and 3 columns. So what do you mean by initialization? So that is nothing but what we are going to give some initial value to the array at the time of its declaration itself. Any array which is more than having 2 dimensions, then it will be termed as what? Multi-dimensional array. Hello everybody, welcome back to the last session on chapter 11, that is arrays. I am Rohini TS from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. So in the previous session of this chapter, I have discussed regarding the one-dimensional array. So as we all know that one-dimensional array is nothing but it will going to hold the collection of elements of a same data type by under the same name with a single subscript. We are going to access the elements of one-dimensional array with a single subscript, and also I have discussed regarding the declaration of one-dimensional array. How we are going to do the declaration? Data type, array name, and within the square bracket we have to specify the size of an array, that is what? The number of elements in an array that it can going to hold. Then initialization of one-dimensional array, the initial value that we are going to give to the array will be considered as what? One initialization of one-dimensional array. And also I have discussed regarding the accessing the elements, how we are going to read and how we are going to display the content of an element of an array along with a program that I have discussed in my last session. So in our today's session, we are going to do the same content but not for the one dimension, it is for 2 dimension. So that, what do you mean by 2-dimensional array? How the elements will going to be declared in the 2-dimensional array, and how we are going to initialize the 2-dimensional array elements, and we are going to learn with the accessing of the elements, that is read and displaying the elements of an array, that too with the help of C++ program, and this is very important for 5 marks question. So let me get into the today's session, that is regarding 2-dimensional array. What do you mean by 2-dimensional array then? It is also an array. It is an array in which each element, so it has a several set of elements. Each element will going to be accessed by making use of a 2 subscript. Then what is this subscript will going to do? So that will going to return the position of an element in the array. So what is the position of particular element? What is the position where it is in the memory address of a array? Then it will going to be get to know with the help of this subscript. Instead of 1 subscript, we will be having 2 subscript in the 2-dimensional array. And the elements of a 2-dimensional array are represented as rows and columns. Very important. So if you consider the 1-dimensional array, it can be in the terms of rows or it can be in the terms of columns. But in the 2-dimensional array, we are going to represent the set of elements as the rows as well as the column. And within this, we are going to write the element value. So this represents the subscript or a position of an element in the array. So that we have to specify, or we must know the number of rows and number of columns. Then it will going to specify the size of an array. So we'll see the next point. Here you can see the representation of a 2-dimensional array. So let me take one example. Int a of 2 cross 3. What it means? Int is a data type and a is the name of an array, and we are giving the size as 2 cross 3. So what it is indicating? So it is indicating this array, this 2-dimensional array will going to hold 2 rows. So it will going to hold, or it will going to have 2 rows and 3 columns. So that is what? 2 cross 3. Then how many elements it will going to hold? 2 into 3, how much? 6 elements. This has a capability or a capacity to hold 6 elements. How I am going to write 2 rows? So consider it is 2 rows, right? Row 1, row 2. And I have to take 3 columns. So this represents row 1 and this represents row 2 and this represents column 1, column 2 and column 3. That is what? 2 rows and 3 columns. Okay. So that is the example. If I wanted to find any value, like if I wanted to find the element of second row and third column, we'll see here, second row, third column, where it is? Here, third column. So this element will going to be represented. This element will going to be found out, that is, it is the position of this element. If I am giving A of 2 cross 3, then it is giving, we have an element in the position second row and third column. And here M represents the number of rows. M represents the number of rows and N represents the number of columns. N minus 1, what is the maximum size of column, and M represent the maximum size of rows. This is regarding what? How the two-dimensional array will going to be represented. So we'll see the declaration of two-dimensional array now. How we have done the declaration of one-dimensional array. So there I have to take a data type, right? We have to take a data type. Next I have to specify the name of an array or array name, and I have to take single subscript. Within that we are going to specify the size of an array, at last semicolon. Here also we are going to follow the same thing. So we have to take data type, which kind of data it is holding, whether it is holding a data type of character or integer or a floating point values, that we have to specify. Then we have to specify the name of an array, that is going to indicate what is the name of an array in the program. Then this size represents the size of an array, that is what? Number of elements in an array. But here in the two-dimensional we are going to have two subscript instead of single subscript. Then what is those two subscript will going to do? We'll see now. You can see the syntax, data type, and we have a array name. After the array name, I have to take two subscript instead of one. Why? Because this two subscript represents the position of an element in the two-dimensional array. So it will going to have, or the elements of an array will going to be represented as rows and columns. So it is mandatory to identify, or it is mandatory to have a row size as well as the column size. So first subscript always specifies the row size and second subscript always specifies the column size. At last semicolon. So let me take one example. Int b of 3 cross 3. What it is indicating? I'm declaring a array called B. What is the size of an array? That is 3 cross 3. So it will going to have 3 rows and 3 columns. So if I multiply 3 into 3, how many elements it will going to hold? It will going to hold 9 elements. So we'll see, when I declare that, at that time it will going to take 3 rows and 3 columns. How many elements I can store? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This will going to hold 9 elements. What is the address then? It has to start with 0. So as I did for this representation, you can see the location starts with 0 for rows as well as the column. So it has to start with 0, should be end with m minus 1, that is the maximum size of rows, n minus 1 maximum size of column. So here also it has to be like 0, 1, 2 and 0, 1, 2. Okay, 0, 1, 2 and 0, 1, 2. This, if I wanted to fetch this element, what is the location of this element? Where it is? It is in the first row, first column. That is what it will going to return as the location. We are using subscript, two subscript we are using. One is what? Row size, and another one is column size. So this is regarding declaration, and this is can also be asked for either 1 marks or 2 marks along with a example. Give a declaration of two-dimensional array along with a example. So this is also important topic. So now we'll see regarding the initialization of two-dimensional array. So what do you mean by initialization? So that is nothing but what? We are going to give some initial value to the array at the time of its declaration itself. Then how we did the initialization to the one-dimensional array? So there we have taken data type, name of an array as well as the size, and along with the equal symbol or assignment operator we have included or we have assigned some of the initial value to the array. So with the floor braces, what are the values that we are going to write? We are going to be copied or we are going to be initialized to the specific size of an array. So we'll see the example you can understand. Here int a of 2 cross 3. Int a of 2 cross 3. So int is a data type and a is the name of an array, 2 is a row size and 3 is a column size and equal. So this is assignment operator that is used for the purpose of initialization. Then within floor braces I have to give the values. So let me consider 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6. How I am giving 6? How can I get to know the number of elements? Here you can multiply 2 cross 3. 2 into 3 is what? 6. It has a capability to hold up to 6 characters. That is what the initialization. So now we'll see how we are going to represent this. So how many rows we have? So let me write. We have 2 rows and how many columns? 3 columns. Then how should I fill all these elements into this number of rows and columns? First, before that, we have to do the numbering. That means we have to give the position. Anyway, it starts with 0. Whether it is for row or column, the 0th index specifies the first element of an array. So, 0th row, first row. And here, 0th column, first column and second column. How many elements it will going to hold? It will going to hold total 6 elements. So I have to fill from first element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay. This is what the initialization will going to takes place. So here you can see that. So 0, this represents the row. How many rows we have? We have 2 rows and number of columns are 3. So index starts with 0 and here it is 1 and here 0, 1, 2. Okay. Then what is the element? 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6. This is first row. That is what it is represented as a first row. This represents the 0th row. This represents the first row, 0th column, first column and second column. Then what is the location of this value 2? Where it is? It is in the 0th row in the first column. So let me write all the location here. A of 0 cross 0. What it indicates? 0, 0. The row is 0 and the column is 0. What we have there? We have 1 and 0 cross. So here A of 0, 1. What we have in 0th row, first column, that is the value is 2 and A of 0 and the column is 2. What we have in 0th row and second column, the value is 3. Okay. So we have to do the same thing for first column. Let me take that one. First row, 0, A of 1 of 0. What we have in first row and 0th column? So we have 4. It will going to hold value 4. A of 1, 1. So first row, first column. So here first row, first column, it has a value called 5 and here A of 1 cross 2. What we have in first row and second column, that is 6. This represents the memory address or a memory location of an element in the 2-dimensional array. Okay. So we'll see one more example. Here int b of 2 cross 3. What it is indicating? Number of rows are 2 and columns are 3. So number of rows. Let me write. Number of rows are 2, columns are 3. Then how many elements I am supposed to take? I have to take 6 elements in order to store all the values, right? So we have 2 rows and 3 columns. The locations are starts with 0, 1, here 0, 1, 2. Okay. So here we have a initialization with a flat braces. We are going to consider this as a 1 value. So it will going to hold 0. It will going to hold 1 and 2 and we have a 3. How I am supposed to fill that one? Consider this as a first row. Consider this as a second row, R1 and R2. Okay, row 1 and row 2. So let me complete this value. So in the 0th row, 0th column, we are going to store 1, and in the 0th row, first column, 2. Do we have any other element after the 2? No. If not, then we are going to fill that value by 0. What we have in next row, that is in the row 2, we have only one element, that is 3. But I am empty with this another 2 values. Rest of 2 values are nothing. So it has to be filled with 0. If there is no values, or if the number of elements are lesser than the size of an array, then it has to be filled by 0. That is what we have done here. So 0, 0 and 0. So this is the representation and initialization of a 2-dimensional array. So next, how we are going to access the elements? So we know we have a array that is of 2-dimensional, and it will going to comprises of rows as well as the columns. Then with the program, how can I access 2-dimensional array elements? We'll see. So before that, I have to take an example, int a of 2 cross 3. So what it indicates? It has 2 rows and 3 columns. The total number of elements are what? It will going to hold 6 elements. Then how we are going to access the 6 elements? That too with the help of nested for loops. Nested for loop. What it mean? One for statement will going to include one more for statement within it. That will be considered as what? Nested for loops. So here we are going to take 2 for loop. We are going to take 2 for loop. One for loop is for rows and another for loop is for columns. So in order to access the row element, we are going to use one for loop, and we are going to use another for loop in order to access the elements of columns. Then how we are going to do this with the program? We'll see. Here you can consider this programming segment in order to read and display. So here we have cout, enter the elements. So we are taking input. We are reading the content of a elements. So enter the element for loop. How many for loops we have? We have 2 for loop. First for loop is considered as what? Outer for loop. And this is considered as what? Inner for loop. Okay. So outer for loop is used or meant for the rows, number of rows and elements of rows. And second for loop is used to represent the column or a number of elements in a column. So that for I is equal to 0, I lesser than 2. Why I am taking I lesser than 2? Because in the initialization we have taken a of 2 cross 3. So it indicates the maximum number of rows are 2 and maximum number of columns are 3. That is what the reason here we are taking I is less than 2. Okay. Then I plus plus. If this condition becomes true, then it will comes for the column. Then for j is equal to 0, j lesser than 3. It will going to check whether we are reading the elements within the box, that is within the range. We are taking an element which is between 2 rows and 3 columns. If it is exceeding, we can't take. So that is what we are checking here. Even if it is true, then it will going to take the value of a of I comma j. I represents the row and j represents the column. So here we are using cin, that is console input, in order to take the value for the array called A. Same thing will going to happen with the cout, that is printing. In order to print the elements of an array, instead of cin, we have to take cout. So here you can see that for I is equal to 0, I lesser than 2. This is condition is true, then it will come to the inner for loop. For j is equal to 0, j lesser than 3, j plus plus. If j lesser than 3 becomes true, then it will going to display the content of a of I j. At last, it will comes to the end of a line. It will going to leave one line of a space after one row. Then we are going to take another row's element. So let me make you understand this concept along with a C++ program. So here we have a C++ program to read the elements into the 2-dimensional array and printing the elements. So we are reading the elements to the 2-dimensional array. Again we are displaying the content of 2-dimensional array. So we'll see the program. include iostream.h. IO in the sense input output stream. So if you wanted to use cin and cout statement in our program, then it is mandatory to include this iostream.h, then conio.h or econio.h to use clear screen as well as the getch function in our program. Then we are taking iomanip.h. So in order to use setw and \t, so for the manipulation purpose, if we are using any of the function, then we have to take iomanip.h. Then we have a void main. So where the actual program will going to start, that is in the main function. Void is a return type and main is a function name. So it will going to avoid the return values. That is what void main, and this opening of a flower brace indicates the opening of that main function. Then int a of 5 cross 5. So what it is indicating, a of 5 cross 5, how many rows and columns it is having? It will going to hold maximum of 5 rows and 5 columns. That is what we are declaring the array. Then ij. So in order to take a number of iteration or a looping repetition, we are taking I for row and j for column, and we have m and n. So m represents the maximum size of row and n represents the maximum size of column. Next is what? Clear screen. It will going to clear the content of previous program. Then cout, enter the order. Order in the sense what? I have to give an order. Maximum order is what? It will going to hold up to 5 rows, 5 column. Totally it will going to hold 25 elements. But I have to specify an order. It can be 2 cross 2, 2 cross 3, 3 cross 3, 4 cross 2, anything it could be. But it should not exceed the value of 5 cross 5. So let me consider the order as 2 cross 2. 2 cross 2. Okay. So now m value is 2, n value is 2. So we are going to read the content to m and n. So this represent number of rows are 2 and number of columns are 2. So this is C1, C2. Number of rows are 2 and number of columns are 2. Next, enter the elements. I have taken the order. Now I have to enter the value of the elements of an array. That is what? Enter the elements for loop. I is equal to 0, I lesser than m, I plus plus. Let me consider I is equal to 0, I lesser than m. Okay. Again what we have? For we have j is equal to 0, j lesser than n, then j plus plus. If it is become true, it will going to input a of I j. Let me show you the tracing. I is equal to 0. Initially I value is 0. What is the next condition we have here? That is what? I lesser than m. I value is 0. 0 is lesser than, what is the m value? 2. Is 0 is lesser than 2? Is it true or false? It is true. If it is true, then it will come for the column. It will come for the column. J is equal to 0. Now, what is the j value? J is 0. And j is lesser than n. Is 0 is lesser than, what is n value? 2. Is 0 is lesser than 2? True or false? It is true. If it is true, then it will come to this line. That is what? A of ij. A of ij. What is the I value? I is 0 and j value is 0. So that is what? A of 0 cross 0. Okay. Let me rename 0, 1. Here 0, 1. So what it is giving? It is giving an access in order to give the element for the 0th row and 0th column. So now I am going to take the value as 10. Okay. Again, I will be in the same j loop itself. I am not going to the next row. I will be in the same row and in the next column I have to take. I have to take a value for 0 cross 1. So I should not go to the first row. I have to be in the 0th row for the second column. That is what? The address is 1. So after this, j will going to be incremented by 1. So now j value become 1 instead of 0. Again, I am going to check is 1 is lesser than 2. Is 1 is lesser than 2? It is true. If it is true, then it will going to take the value of that I value will be 0 itself. a of 0 and j value will going to be 1 now. Initially it was 0 plus 1 becomes 1. So now the j value is 1. So 0 cross 1. What is the location of 0 cross 1? Where it is? It is in the 0th row, first column. So it is accessing, giving an access in order to give the input to second element of a same row. Okay. Again now this j will going to be incremented by 1. So now j value is 2. Is 2 is lesser than 2? You have to find out, is 2 is lesser than 2? This become false. If this become false, it won't execute this portion. Again, it will go back to here. Now, I will be incremented by 1 because I have ended the iteration by this position. Then I came here, then here. These two got over. Again, I am moving back to the for loop called I. I represent the row. So, I am coming here back. So, now I value will going to be incremented by 1. So, now I value is 1 instead of 0. Initially it was 0. 0 plus 1 become 1. So, that means what? We are in the first row. That is second row, but the location is first. Okay. So, I is equal to 1. Again, I am going to check is 1 is lesser than 2. Is 1 is lesser than 2? True or false? If this will become true. If it is true, again it will come to the j loop. What we have in j now? So, j is 0. J is 0 and is 0 is lesser than 2. Is 0 is lesser than 2, then it become true. If it becomes true, at that time we are going to give the value of a of ij. What is the value? A of first row, 0th column. So, that means we are going to give the value to this position. Let me consider that as 30. Okay. So, now j will going to be incremented by 1. So, j was 0. So, now j value become 1. J is 1 now. Is 1 is lesser than 2? True or false? It becomes true. If it is true, again it will come here and I value will be as it is a of 1, comma 1. So, it is giving a space in order to store the value here. So, now I am going to give the value as 40 by making use of this statement, by making use of this CIN statement. Okay. So, now the value of last element was 40. J will be incremented to 2 now. So, now again I have to check j is equal to 2. Is 2 is lesser than 2? Is 2 is lesser than 2? No, it become false. If it is false, it comes back to this position. It comes back to I. I was 1, then again it will be incremented to 2. Again I am going to check is 2 is lesser than 2? It becomes false. If this is false, it won't come for the column. It won't read the value. That means we have read all the character or we have read all the elements value in the 2 cross 2 array. So, the value of 0th row, 0th column is 10. The value of 0th row and first column is 20. The value of first row and 0th column is 30. The value of first row and first column is 40. So, we have read all the elements of an array. This is what, how we are going to access or how we are going to read the element into the array. Then how we are going to display the same content, same iteration will going to take place. Instead of CIN, we are going to display the content. That's it. That is what we are doing here. See out the array elements are. We are displaying. Then for loop, I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. So I is 0, 0 is lesser than 2. True. If it is true, it will come here and j is 0, 0 is lesser than 2, it becomes true. If it is true, it will comes to the cout statement a of ij. So, now I is 0 and j is also 0. What we have in a of 0, 0, that is what? 10. So, in the output screen, it will going to display 10. Then iteration will going to take place, it will going to display 20, it will comes to the tab line space, then it will comes to the next line and it will going to display 30 as well as the 40 in the output screen. So, CIN, cout, same iteration, same code. Instead of CIN here, we are going to take cout. That's it. So, in order to read CIN and in order to display cout. So this is what you have to remember. Then we are going to close the for loop and get ch, and we are going to close the main function. So this is how we are going to read and display the content of two-dimensional array by making use of a C++ programming. I hope you all understood with two-dimensional array. So now we'll see about multi-dimensional array. So as the name indicates, multi-dimensional. Any array which is more than having two dimension, then it will be termed as what? Multi-dimensional array. So it is what? Array of array. It will going to include collection of elements with a collection of elements. So it will going to have more than two dimension. So multi-dimensional array is an array of n dimensions. More than 2 is n dimension. If I am going to take n as 5, then it is 5 dimension. Instead of 5 dimension, we are going to term that as what? Multi-dimensional array. So an array of array is called multi-dimensional array. So consider, this is one array. This array is holding another array. Then it will be termed as what? Multi-dimensional array. Then what is the syntax? Here also I have to take data type, name of an array, and I have to specify many number of subscript. If it is having 5 dimension, how many subscript it will going to hold? It will going to hold 5 subscript. That represent number of rows, number of columns. So that is what? Data type and array name S1, S2, S3 up to Sn. S1, S2, S3 are the dimension up to Sn dimension. So where S1 is the size of the ith dimension. If I am going to give S3 and all, it is 3 dimension. S4, that is 4 dimensions. So this is regarding multi-dimensional array. I hope you all understood with the types of an array, and we are at the end of this chapter, arrays. In this arrays, we are going to learn what is the usage of an array or fundamentals of array as well as the types of array. In each type, we have to consider its declaration, initialization, accessing along with the program example. This much is enough for your examination, and we are done with this arrays chapter. So let me meet you in the next session with a new chapter. Until that, keep learning, keep on growing. Thank you very much.